Welcome to before I subside the event, how to promote synergies in Asia Pacific, message from the expert group on climate and SDG synergies. ISAP is abbreviation of International Forum for Sustainable Asia and the Pacific, mainly organized by IGES, Institute of Global Environmental Strategies, and then our very important partners. And then we have a main session on next week's Tuesday, 19th, and then this is a pre-session to make the discussion for input into our main ISAP symposium. Okay, yeah, some of you know that we finally conclude the UNFCCC COP28 in Dubai. Like some of you may join the conference in the venue. I was also there, and also Professor Takeuchi was there. Yeah, and then next question is that based on the very good, very affordable agreement, how we can make it happen, and then we believe that these kind of synergistic actions are really necessary for accelerate our action to achieve net zero by 2050 or SDGs goal or any biodiversity or pollution issues or any others. Yeah, today we have a very good and then very well expertised the speakers, and then first, I'm Junichi Fujino from the IGS Institute of Global Environmental Strategy, Program Director of the Integrated Sustainability Center. Today's moderator MC, and then so let's go to the agenda, move to the next session, and then first I would like to share the video message from the Bahare Shidia. She is a senior sustainable officer in UNDESA, and she was also in Dubai COP28, and then we have a very good discussion session together in Dubai. Okay, so please, yes, what is Bahare's message? So please.
Dear colleagues, thank you for the invitation to join you at this important retreat and for the opportunity to share a few words on behalf of UNDESA. Let me start by saying that the topic of climate and SDG synergies remains a top priority for us. As you may know, together with UNFCCC, we have been working on the issue of strengthening the synergistic implementation of the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Goals from 2019. We have been convening annual dialogues to offer a dedicated platform on this topic. Earlier this year, we also convened together with UNFCCC, the expert group on climate and SDG synergies. We are delighted to have Professor Takeuchi as a member of the expert group. The group launched its first report in September of this year in the margins of the General Assembly. Now, the key message from the report is clear. The world is facing interconnected crises of climate, development, but also nature and biodiversity, and that we can no longer afford seeking solutions to these interconnected crises in isolation from one another. The only way to course correct is to shift from siloed approaches to integrated and holistic solutions that address multiple challenges at once. And that is what we mean by synergistic action. The expert group's report provides ample evidence on how synergies lead to more cost-effective solutions. It also showcases many examples from around the world on integrated approaches. Yet, progress is not at the scale and speed that is needed. And the reason for that is that many countries are still facing challenges to bridge development, nature, and climate goals, policies, and solutions. The report highlights a number of barriers, from knowledge gaps to issues related to realigning financial flows and policy coherence. There remains a large gap in capacities needed to overcome these barriers. At UNDESA, we are committed to do our part in supporting countries and all other stakeholders to address these barriers and advance integrated solutions. Let me highlight three key components of our work going forward. First, we will continue the annual dialogues. The 5th Global Conference on Climate and SDG Synergies will take place in 2024. The dates and location for that is soon to be announced. Second, we will continue investing in deepening the evidence base. The second report of the expert group will also be launched next year. And lastly, we believe there is momentum to elevate the importance of synergies at the political level, leveraging the upcoming critical milestones. The high-level political forum in July, for example, will focus on the review of SDG 13. There, we have an opportunity to look at synergies within the context of intergovernmental processes related to the SDGs. Later in the year, the Summit of the Future in September and COP29 in Azerbaijan are other critical moments, and we will continue advocating for synergies to inform these processes. Let me end by thanking Professor Takeuchi and the IGES colleagues who have been a solid partner to us on this important topic. I also thank you for offering to host the in-person meeting of the experts in March at IGES. I look forward to seeing many of you there. With that, I wish you all a productive meeting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bahare. Yeah, I heard that she took this video in Dubai COP20 during COP28, and then yeah, even though very busy schedule, thank you for sharing the latest activity. Also, thank you for share your expectation on our the expert group meeting the next March in Hayama headquarters, IGES headquarters over Tokyo. Okay, then next I would like to invite the president of the IGES, Professor Kazuhiko Takeuchi. He also joined the Dubai COP, and then he is one of the expert group members for this Climate and SDG Synergy. Okay, so Professor Takeuchi Sensei, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Takeuchi. I'm a president of IGES. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you to this IGES side event on synergy between the climate and the SDGs. Last week, we could have a chance to attend the official COP28 side event on the just and equitable transition through greater climate action and SDG Synergies organized by UNDESA. And we are very pleased that we could have a very good conclusion that we could further move forward. And at the Japan Pavilion, we also could have the chance to organize our side events on talking not only the climate and the SDG Synergy, but also to include the biodiversity in our integration, and so that we further could expand our area of collaboration. This is a global picture. We are in the midst of the decisive decade, and we must transform our society by the year 2030. And also we could really establish a sustainable society by the year 2050. And we have the 2030 agenda on SDGs, and we are in the process of starting a new framework of post-SDGs. And we also could have the agreement on the Paris Agreement last week. Yesterday, we could have the new UAE consensus to raise our ambition on the reduction of the CO2 emissions. And last year, we could have a very good discussion of establishment of a Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, aiming to achieve the 30 by 30 by the year 2030. And also, we are in the process of discussing about how we could terminate the plastic pollution. So we are aiming to achieve the sustainable society with GHG net zero, and also living in harmony with nature, and the establishment of a circular society by the year 2050. So we have lots of things to do in a short period of time, and therefore synergetic approach is not only useful, but also necessary to achieve all these global challenges simultaneously. And we could have the third global climate and synergy conference we could held at the UNU in Tokyo with the financial support of the Ministry of the Environment of the Government of Japan. And we could find out several key outcomes, including the strengthening the evidence base for synergetic action and convening multi-stakeholder dialogues at all levels, enhancing integrated planning, partnerships for transformation, and informing key intergovernmental processes on climate and SDGs. And we introduced Japan's trial of creating a circulating and ecological sphere and decarbonization areas, which is a showcase of how we could integrate our synergetic actions on the local scale. And we also could have the very good results of the expert group on climate and SDG synergies. And these results we have, as you can see, which will be explained later on by our chair, Luis. So there are great progress we had. And also, after the Tokyo conference, we could organize another conference in New York at the UN headquarters. And we could get several key messages, including breaking down silos and synergetic approaches between the environment action and SDGs, and growing scientific evidence supporting the pursuit of 2030 agenda and Paris Agreement together can advance. Both enhanced policy coherence is fundamental for maximizing synergies and minimizing trade-offs. And stakeholder engagement is a core element of a just transition to net zero and climate resilient future. And just transition poses challenges for all, with developing countries facing difficulties and requires tailored support. And therefore, the collaboration between the developed and developing countries are key for the success of the synergetic action. And we also summarize the global report, as I already mentioned. And this is the concept of the circulating and ecological sphere, or in short, CES. Based on the society in harmony with nature, we could establish a resource circulation, and then we could decarbonize our society. So biodiversity, resource circulation, and decarbonization is a key component of establishing a circulating and ecological sphere, which can be combined with many sustainable development goals and other issues, including the UNFCCC, UNEP Resource Panel, and Convention on Biological Diversity, and Sendai Framework on Disaster Risk Reduction. There are several ideas how we could create a synergy between the SDGs 6 and 7. And this regional circulating ecological sphere could contribute to create a bridge between the two SDGs goals. And also, it could contribute to the materialization of a volunteer local reviews, which is localization of a voluntary national reviews of the SDGs. And this could also contribute to the SDGs 11 on sustainable cities and communities. And also, we need to respond to the global crisis that we are now facing. And good environment and global security could be also combined in this framework. So this is the three areas with the potential for the synergies. And in order to scientifically approach to this integration, IGES could start the new research project on the integration of the fragmented activities, and then we could get the three important key indicators for establishing the synergies. Follow-up and review of synergies, strengthening interagency coordination, and expanding stakeholder engagement, including youth and women. And we summarize in the scientific paper. And so if you have a chance, please access to our results. And also, we are trying to expand our collaboration with the local governments in Asian region and Asian cities. And in Asia, we are still suffering from the pollution issues like air pollution and water pollution. And therefore, co-benefits also could extend to the issues of pollution. And the co-benefit approach between the global challenges with the local challenges could be further discussed on this approach. Synergies for the world crisis, we could summarize as a report, and Luis will explain later on that I already showed at the beginning of my speech. And also the Global Sustainable Development Report showed the similar type of the discussion need to entry point to accelerate multiple SDGs. Showing the human well-being and the capacity, sustainable and just economics, sustainable food system, healthy nutrition patterns, energy decarbonization with universal access, and urban and peri-urban development and global environmental commons. And also in the scientific discussions, IPCC started to discuss about the importance of synergies. Mitigation and adaptation actions have more synergies than with the SDGs. The synergies trade-off depend on context and scale of implementation. And IPBES also gave us a report on the nexus assessment, which showed the necessity of interlinkages between the biodiversity and climate change, and also the which need to include the relevant aspect of energy system, water, food, and health nexus. And the IRP, Global Resources Outlook, also showing the importance of the nexus approach in the field of the material circulation. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Takeuchi, for having the the very latest framework for how we will understand the synergy and then how we can go forward. Thank you so much. Okay, then next I would like to invite Mr. Luis Gomez Echeverri. He is the senior advisor to the program, Advancing Systems Analysis Program in IESA, Institute for Applied Science at the IESA. So, Luis, good morning, good morning. Thank you for joining this session. I think it's very early morning in your place. Yeah, he's a co-lead of this synergy report that the Professor Takeuchi introduced, the raising up the report. Yeah, so Luis, please share the findings and the main message from this very latest global report. So over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for IGES for giving me the opportunity to present the highlights of the report. In the very short period of time that I have, I will only present highlights, some of which have already been presented by Professor Takeuchi and by Bahari. So I will move rather quickly. But I would like to start by thanking IGES, Professor Takeuchi, our moderator, and the team at IGES for being probably the most active contributor to the report. So we owe the quality of this report a lot to IGES, and I just wanted to thank you very much. The second thing I wanted to say is that we should all be happy with the results of the COP28. See, we had a number of events on synergies, and I think that they got a great deal of attention. And now the work starts so that in 2025, countries present their plans in response to the global stocktake. And we will be working very hard, and I think this report and the ones to follow will be great evidence for the countries to use as they move to the 2025 presentations in the COP30. If we can move to the next 3 slides, if we can go to the picture of the next one, please, the next one. So this is, as I mentioned, the expert group, 14 people, 14 experts from all over the world. Professor Takeuchi, of course, we were privileged and honored to have among the group, but it was a very diverse group. We had the vice chair of the IPCC, the former chair of the IPCC, vice chair of the IPCC, and a number of directors from institutes in China, Sweden, and many parts of the world. So we were very grateful for all the contribution and participation. If we can go to the next one, please. A lot of what we did in this report was built on the recommendations that came out of the 3rd Global Synergies Conference, which have already been talked about by Professor Takeuchi. If we can go to the next report. I will not go into the detail because that has already been presented by Professor Takeuchi. So if we can go to the next one, please, the next slide. And here we go to the challenges. The challenge is that if we don't solve the 2 challenges, the 2 crises together, we will not solve them at all. It's a little bit the message of the Secretary General and the message of the report. If we can go to the next one, please. Here, I would like to present the main challenges that the report addresses. The first one is that there is an increasing recognition that synergies were important, but the data, analysis, and information is spread all over the world. Very difficult to access, and for policymakers, what I was told was that it's very difficult to find good data that they can support for their policy design. So we would like to promote the idea of creating a knowledge platform to help with this. The second one is the absence of tools. There are methodologies, many methodologies that are available, but some of them are very obscure. They're based on modeling. They're based on obviously analysis that is not synergistic and integrated. So what we are proposing here, we need to create a framework for action that is easy to access for policymakers, and this would be particularly relevant as the countries prepare for their presentations in the 25th in the SDG. I'm sorry, in COP30, in the COP30 for the global stocktake. The issue of finance comes up again and again as one of the major bottlenecks. This is something that we will be again continuing to work on the next report. One of the things that we would like to focus on is try to provide recommendations for the great debate, the global debate that is taking place on how to reform the global financial structure, and that will be presented for the Summit for the Future. Synergies has to be part of this, and we will be working hard to make sure that this is included. And the last one, the next to the last one, is the adequacy or inadequacy of the reporting mechanisms. If synergies are so important, why is it that the reporting on them is not a prerequisite? We are going to push to make this a prerequisite, and there we will facilitate this. And the last one, of course, is the topic of just transitions, that they should be a lot more prominent in all the work that we do, as has been presented by both Bahari and Professor Takeuchi. If we can go to the next slide, please. We also present the existing barriers that need addressing for synergies, and we organize them in 3 pillars. The first one is the easier knowledge access. Again, I mentioned that before, and what we're hoping to do is to make it easier for addressing the major disconnect that exists between scientific evidence, policy, and society implementation. This is one of the major barriers that we need to address. The second one is on the financial mechanisms, which I already mentioned. And then the third one is on the improved political planning and reporting. And there we're talking about governance and institutions, and making sure that that there is greater connection or coordination, collaboration between sectors and between sectors and ministries. If we can go to the next one, please. So why is this important? There is a great deal of urgency. We heard it in COP28 every day. There is a great deal of or rather a lack of progress on the SDGs, and also on climate. We present in the report the price that we are paying for that to happen. The report presents a list of potential negative impacts also in terms of short financial resources, in shortfalls in financial resources, in the jobs that are put at risk, and the people at risk of hunger. And this is all part of presenting evidence so that policymakers are more encouraged to follow something that will help and create a greater impact on the policies that they are presenting. If we can go to the next one, please. Then the evidence, of course, and the evidence, if we can go to the next slide, please. In the next slide, we have gone through all the NDCs, the VNRs, the plans of action, and yes, there's a lot of evidence of synergies, but they don't come out. They're not prominent. They're not well organized. And what we're hoping is that in the next report we can present some suggestions of how to make this much more evident and organized for the next NDCs and VNRs, so that policymakers can have access. The next one, please. Yes, and here we would like to thank IGES. We have a number of cases, very important cases from every region of the world in Asia Pacific, with great case studies that were presented to us by IGES, Latin America, Africa. And what we're hoping with this is that as part of the evidence that countries can use and policymakers can use these cases so that they can see what has been done elsewhere and to try to imitate. They try to use it as examples, and they like to and hopefully upscale their policies in different parts of the world. Next slide, please. And the opportunity, of course, if we can go to the next one, is that by doing the synergies, we have major positive impacts. We are reducing the financial gaps, and there we are presenting evidence of what this means in terms of dollars and cents, euros and cents, and I think that this should provide convincing evidence that we really need to work in synergy. And the second one is we are achieving targets faster. We are facilitating long-term vision by acting in a synergistic way rather than separately. When we do it separately, we are acting incrementally. We are sometimes presenting solutions which have negative effects on other parts of the society or the economy. So by doing synergistic actions with looking at the trade-offs and the co-benefits, this is a way to avoid that. And of course, the last one, the most important, is ensuring a just transition, which it should be prominent in all the work that we do as we move forward. The next one, please. And the next one, we also, if we can go to the next slide, please, that we are we point to one very important element that comes up again and again in our analysis of the report, and that is that we really need that synergies and the work that we do on climate and development needs to be contextualized. It is not the same for all the regions, localities, and so we need to be careful on how we do and how we apply these policies. We need to localize the action, and for that we're talking about moving to the next report and looking at the urban setting and cities, where we hope that IGES, which is probably one of the ones that has the most experience in this area, and in the area of Asia Pacific, where we have growing cities that we can use as examples of synergistic action. And of course, the last one is on the financial mechanisms. The next one, please. And the key recommendations, I'll go very quickly because I'm running out of time. The next one, please. The first one is that we need to enhance collective resilience against current and future global crises. We learned a lot from the COVID crisis. We learned that by doing synergistic action, and we have a lot of very good examples in mobility, in technology, in communications, etc., that we are able to actually have greater impact. We can help societies change behavior, etc. The second one is the need to strengthen science policy society interface. This is a major stumbling block which we really need to correct in the future. And with this, we're hoping that by improving the data and the analysis that is available and how we present it and make it available to policymakers, it will help. We need to promote capacities and skills. We talk about synergies and contextualizing when applying at the local level, but the skills are very, very poor in many parts of the world. And we really need to make greater efforts in promoting equity, also, but promoting and helping in building skills. We need to ensure policy coherence. There is a great deal of fragmentation in finance, in policies. We still work in silos in ministries and departments. We need to change the format in which we do this. And we're going to be pushing a lot between now and 2025 when the reports of the countries are made in order for this to happen. We need to make it easier for policymakers to do the analysis. And then, of course, the prioritizing of the role of the international organizations, institutions, etc., so that we can make that, so that they can play a greater role, the IPCC, the World Bank, etc., to play and be accountable actually for the work that they do in promoting synergies. With this, I thank you very much. And again, thanking IGES for all the contributions that it has made up today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luis, for very concise and then also very well-organized presentation. And then, Luis, can you turn on your video again? And then I would like to ask Professor Takeuchi to make any words, because he is president of IGES. Also, he is one of the expert group members. So, Professor Takeuchi, do you have any words to Luis?
Thank you very much, Luis, for your detailed explanation about what we discussed and what we achieved and what we summarized. And we will also organize a next Synergy meeting in March from 6 to 8 in Hayama and in Tokyo. And I would like to ask you, what is your expectation? What we should further discuss based on the achievement that we made?
Yes, thank you very much. I think that with what we have done in the first report, which is to collect the evidence, there was a lot of literature review, a lot of information that was provided by all of you experts and the institutions that you represent. What we are doing now is to try to focus on only four of the recommendations. The first one is on the knowledge and data. That's a major stumbling block for the science policy society interface. We need to address that, and that we will be doing moving forward. And I hope to talk about that in Tokyo. The second one is the creation of policy frameworks for policymakers to really make it easier for them to, what we have now is not helpful. It's very important for research, scientists, etc., but not for the policymakers and the person in the street. The third one is on the finance. I hope that in Tokyo we can talk a lot about how to address the issue of finance, and not just providing recommendations for a global debate on the financial structure, but concrete measures for finance. This is a major stumbling block. And the last one, of course, is on cities. And the cities, IGES has one of the biggest contributions to make in this area. I personally hope that we can really make this one of the major projects as we move forward between now and the year 2030, so that we can look at this setting where 70% of the population are expected to live in the year 2050. So those are the four areas that if we can talk about that in Tokyo in the 5th, 6th, and 7th of March, that would be absolutely great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Luis and then Professor Takeuchi. Okay, yeah. Then next I may move to the next session panel discussion. For this panel discussion, we have three experts and then so the panelists, can you turn on your video if you are ready? Thank you so much. So we have three panelists. First one is the Mr. Kurt Garrigan. He is the Chief of the Sustainable Urban Development Section, UNSCAP. Yeah, thank you very much, Kurt, for joining us. And then second panelist is the Mr. Issei Nakahara. He is the Deputy Director, International Strategy Division, Ministry of Environment, Japan. Thank you for joining us. And then last but not least, Dr. Yukin Yu Ariel. She is a Principal Researcher and then Deputy Director for the Bangkok Research Regional Center, BRC, of the IGES. So thank you very much, Ariel, for joining us. Okay, so and then, we have like three questions, and then, due to time limitation, I may try to have two rounds for having the lively discussion, because we have a global report. But the next question is that what we can develop, or what we can make voices from Asia Pacific to accelerate the synergistic actions. For example, why don't you develop kind of the Asia Pacific synergy report sometime, or any other activity we may develop. And then thank you very much for all the participants who joined this session online. And then we have a Q&A box, and then, if you have any question, please make your question, or also your input, how we can accelerate the synergistic action in Asia Pacific. Okay, so then let's go to round one. It's quite a simple question, but what efforts have been made related to synergy from your perspective, from your organization, with your partners? Because as the Luis or Professor Takeuchi mentioned, firstly we need to correct any kind of existing good showcases, and then we also need good methodology or any other new steps, transformative steps. But first we need to learn about what we have done, and then we can consider what is next. So, Kurt, over to you.
Thank you very much, Junichi-san. I have a presentation, and I think it will be put up on the screen. Good, thank you very much. Actually, I could not have a better introduction than Luis's final comments on the importance of cities, and especially in the Asia Pacific region. If we can go to the next slide, please. And I think this slide actually really identifies what the challenge or what the opportunities are in Asia Pacific. that more than 50% of the population in the region is living in urban areas. And while the region generally is contributing more than 50% of global emissions, 70% of that is coming from the region's urban areas. There are other obvious environmental challenges, including poor air quality, but there are synergies related to those potential solutions. I think what's interesting to point out is from the recent COP28, the Local Climate Action Summit actually recognized in the ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change that collaboration and inclusive and ambitious multi-level climate action in cities is essential to achieving the ambitions of the Paris Climate Agreement. So I think there's some real opportunities coming forward. Next slide. But the challenges are, and it is also within the various interlinked crises that we see across and certainly affecting the region. But our region is expected to increase an additional 1 billion people by 2050, putting strain on infrastructure and other services in the context of these interlinked crises, including climate, recovery from the pandemic, food insecurity, access to energy, and housing. Next slide, please. So here we have on the left the SCAP 2023 SDG Progress Report and from the Synergies Report on the right. And I think one of the interesting aspects that we see from the Synergies Report is the lack of data on SDG 11. And while those targets are fairly specific, I think what it really indicates is that information and data that's coming from the local level is insufficient to inform policies more generally, including climate policies. And we see on the left that in the region, climate action has actually regressed and is way off track from what it should be to achieve the 2030 agenda. The region is off track on all SDGs. But the regression that we see in climate action is especially disturbing. But we all know, and again, Luis and Professor Takeuchi already pointed out the role and potential of cities to help accelerate climate action. Next slide, please. And then if we look at this also from the Synergies Report, that you see in terms of mitigation, urban and infrastructure has actions and potential across every SDG. And it is the only section that has a mitigation potential in all of those at that level. So next slide, please. So what we recognize really is that cities are a potential accelerator, can generate synergies. And then here we see from the what was recommendation 10 in the Synergies Report that you should treat cities, which are sites of major population growth, as opportunities for focusing on climate and development synergies. What SCAP has recently done is release a report called The Future of Asian Pacific Cities that's focused really on crisis resilient urban futures. And there are 4 thematic areas, key areas that we think are integrated and will generate the co-benefits from those synergies. The first is on urban and territorial planning, which is the foundation for any kind of action, whether it be climate or infrastructure or housing or anything else. The second is on establishing urban resilience as part of that foundation. So multi-level climate action, but also building resilient communities. The third is on leveraging digital transformations. And the fourth, as already pointed out here, is the importance of finance. And in this case, at the local level, so urban finance, including city climate finance, which has a very low percentage of overall climate finance globally. Next slide, please. So we see, and I think it's well known and recognized already, what is the context for cities and climate action and why specifically Asia Pacific, already mentioned the extreme potential for climate action from cities, but also the contribution of the Asia Pacific cities to global emissions. So if we are to achieve the ambitions of the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda, cities must develop some action and must be supported in those efforts. Next slide, please. And just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. I'm not going to dwell on these slides, but obviously some of the co-benefits relate to health and environments, as you see in urban air pollution. Next slide. And SCAP member states came together last year to develop the Regional Action Program on Air Pollution, which is the first regional intergovernmental agreement on collaboration for air pollution. Next slide. There are a number of action areas across the air pollution program, including looking at air quality standards, data and monitoring and sharing of data, exchange of best practices, building capacities, and then a long-term commitment to multilateral cooperation. Next slide. But really at its core, cities must focus on basic urban services, but all of these have potential climate benefits and co-benefits. So whether it be looking at household energy usage, urban mobility and transport and how cities are managed, developing green and open space to look at biodiversity, but also look at carbon capture and urban heat island effect and how to mitigate those climate impacts, and solid waste management and resource management as well. All of these kind of basic core municipal services have potential climate action that should be leveraged as part of broader strategies. Next slide. But how to leverage those requires, and it was in the report as well, and emphasized by Luis, the localization is critical to actually achieve this. So whether it be through VLRs, voluntary local reviews, or whether it be through local action plans on air pollution or climate, all of these elements require cities and national governments to work together and build those coordination mechanisms and establish those relationships so that these actions can be sustainable. Next slide, please. So the link between national and local reviews is important. It helps also to fill those information and data gaps that were pointed out in that early slide, the graphic that said there was insufficient data. Much of that data is available at local level. It's just not making its way into the national reporting, and it's not making its way into policy development. Next slide, please. So again, just the four elements that we think are fundamental. Crisis-resilient urban futures require planning. Next slide. Integrating urban communities as key actors in climate action and building resilience. Next slide. And you'll have these slides available, so I'm running through them very quickly to try to stay in my time. Digital transformations and leveraging technologies for urban solutions. Next slide. And again, looking at urban finance and the flow of finance to help support many of these actions, because without those actions being implemented and financed, we will not achieve what the potential for the region that is possible from the Asia Pacific cities. I think that's it. Next slide, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kurt. And then you already cover a lot of things. And yeah, it's a great input for the second version of the global report too. But we also need to think about the Asia Pacific specific report sometime. And then yeah, thank you so much. Then next, I would like to invite the Issei Nakahara-san from MOJ. So over to you, Nakahara-san.
Thank you, Junichi. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's very pleased to be here. So let me share our Ministry of the Environment activities and efforts for synergistic approaches so far, and also a proposal of resolution on synergies for UNFCCC next February. As you know, we are currently facing the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. So in order to overcome these challenges simultaneously, as well as achieve SDGs, the synergistic approach is attracting attention across the globe. The importance of synergy was highlighted in the communiqué of G7 ministerial meeting on climate, energy, and environment in Sapporo, as well as the Hiroshima Summit and the Japanese presidency this year. Among the specific efforts of synergy, nature-based solution, the measures to address biodiversity loss and climate change are particularly important. The Satoyama Initiative, which Japan has been leading with the United Nations University, UNU, and promoting conservation and sustainable use and management of production landscapes and seascapes, is an excellent example of harmonization between nature and human activities. Actions through this initiative could contribute to not only biodiversity conservation, but also climate mitigation and adaptation. So those could be one of the priority as synergistic actions. UNDESA and UNFCCC launched the International Conference on Climate and SDG Synergies in April 2019. The Ministry of the Environment Japan hosted the third conference in Tokyo in July last year, as stated earlier. Based on these outcomes of the conference, the expert group has been organized by this UNDESA and UNFCCC, and already mentioned from Luis, the first global report on climate and SDG synergies was released last September at the SDG Summit. To accelerate these activities, our Japanese government intends to propose a resolution titled Promoting Synergistic Approaches to Address the Planetary Environmental Crises of Climate Change, Biodiversity Loss, and Pollution, and Support Sustainable Development at UNFCCC to be held in Nairobi next February. So it aims to encourage countries to accelerate their efforts to achieve the SDGs with synergistic approaches, as well as promote efforts to identify specific policy measures to enhance synergies based on scientific knowledge. Furthermore, it highlights the need for collecting tangible evidence to enhance knowledge. We had support from Fiji now and other AP countries so far. The contents of the resolution will include that calling upon member states to enhance synergies in their actions with 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature goal, 2030 mission, and 2050 vision of the GBF and SDGs. We also encourage countries to integrate synergistic approaches into existing reporting mechanisms, such as national determined contributions, NDCs, voluntary national reviews, VNRs, and national biodiversity strategy and action plans, NBSAPs. We would also request UNEP Executive Director to correct good practices and develop guidance for policymakers to support member states in making policies on synergistic approaches. Also, as already mentioned by Bahare, UNDESA, and Professor Takeuchi, we have plans to host the expert group meeting and hold a public symposium with the cooperation of Keidanren, Japan Business Federation, in Japan next March. We'd like to continue promoting these synergistic approaches with like-minded partners in the Asia-Pacific region and beyond, so that we can contribute to the discussion of the Summit of the Future next year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nakahara-san, for sharing the leadership from the governmental side to promote the synergy. Yeah, this year Japan is the presidency of G7, and then also the Nakahara-san and his team use a lot of opportunity to push accelerate this momentum from the side of the government. Thank you so much. Okay, then I'd like to ask my colleague Ariel for your comments or how you are sharing. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. Warm greetings from Bangkok. First, thank you so much, Fujino-san, for the invitation. I'm very honored to be on this panel with the distinguished panelists and also fellow speakers. So in addition to my IGS hat, as Fujino-san introduced, I'm also with the UNFCCC IGS Regional Collaborating Center for Asia and Pacific, or RCCAP in short. It's a joint team established by UNFCCC and IGS to promote climate action in the region. It was originally established by the CDM Executive Board, and our initial focus was on CDM only. After adoption of the Paris Agreement, our scope has been expanded from mitigation to other thematic areas, including adaptation, transparency, and means of implementation. Nevertheless, what I wanted to highlight here is that when we expanded our scope on climate change, we at the same time have included sustainable development and participation as one of our work streams. Therefore, I'm very safe to say that promoting sustainable development while addressing the challenges from climate change has been a daily mandate for us, especially under the sustainable development work stream. We have focused on climate empowerment, including the empowerment of women, youth, and indigenous peoples. As part of our global climate action and our sectoral engagements, we have actively engaged Fashion Charter and support organizations to convene fashion and sports stakeholders for a coherent and unified position on climate. I have many examples of how our team has invited stakeholders in non-traditional, typical climate sectors to join climate action. However, I'd also like to share some of the examples how we incorporate sustainable development into our regular climate work. One of the examples is the way to kickstart Article 6 implementation. If you have followed Article 6 negotiations, you're probably aware that Article 6.4 mechanism is yet to be operational, while Article 6.2 is operational. One of the reasons that have caused the delays in Article 6.4 operation is that the parties have not adopted a sustainable development tool for the Article 6.4 mechanism. Therefore, the supervisory body worked very hard this year before the COP, aiming to complete one of the last pieces of Article 6.4 rules, modality, and procedures, and hoping that we will be able to enable the full operation of the mechanism of this COP. Unfortunately, as you probably already know, that the goal failed this year in Dubai, implying that we have to patiently wait for at least another year. Nevertheless, as a more concrete example, I'd also like to share some the methodologies that we are using on the ground to originate Article 6 projects. My team has been recently awarded by FAO to identify potential Article 6 projects in the agri-food systems in the region. When we screen opportunities, we are employing 3 indicators, which are higher ambition, promoting sustainable development, and ensuring environmental integrity. These 3 factors align with the Article 6, paragraph 1 of the Paris Agreement, and we are checking concept by concept to ensure that each project idea we've come up with can first to minimize or whenever possible, avoid negative environmental, economic, and social impacts. And second, acknowledge that climate change is a common concern for humankind. When taking action to address climate change, we respect, promote, and consider respective obligations on human rights, the rights to health, the rights of indigenous peoples, local communities, migrants, children, persons with disabilities, and also people in vulnerable situations and their right to develop. development. And third, that we also ensure gender equality, empowerment of women, and intergeneration equity. I believe that there are so many other examples, such as energy just transition and cities co-benefits of clean air and climate change will already be mentioned by the other panelists, and the nexus approach for water, energy, food ecosystem. And hence, I don't want it to go into the details of those examples. But lastly, I wanted just to mention that although our team has engaged various groups of stakeholders, especially in this year's context of global static, young people have always been the most important stake groups for us to engage, to enhance engagement with them. We, together with several of the UN agencies, already developed a platform called Youth Empowerment in Climate Action Platform, or YACAP in short. So you may check the YACAP website for our youth-related activities. So I stop here and hand over the floor back to Fujino-san. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ariel. So many initiatives, and then yeah, we are in the Johor last month for the Asia Pacific Climate Week. Yeah, just before I had a guest in the Tokyo Sustainability Forum, our Tokyo office, the Datu Seri Utama Hasni bin Mohammed. He is the executive chairman of the Johor Sustainability Center. It was newly developed during the Asia Pacific Climate Week, and yeah, we have many initiatives are now happening, and he kindly gave me this the pin badge. Okay, Luis, and then so listening to three panelists, do you have any reaction or any like input from your side?
Yes, very briefly, and I thank you very much. I think that it's evident from the presentations that Asia Pacific has one of the most important contributions to make as we move forward in every aspect of the challenge to climate change. And we have repeatedly talked about the cities, of course, and that would be why that is so important is because this is where you see a lot of the linkages with health, with infrastructure, with many of the SDGs on poverty, on security, etc., that we really need to take into consideration. I also mentioned that we should all be happy about the results of COP28, but now the countries are asked to present in a couple of years their plans as to how they're going to address the recommendations of COP28. And I think that we, our community that is working on synergies, have a big work to do to try to make sure that in these plans, these recommendations are going to be included. And just to finalize, a couple of things that were mentioned by the panelists, extremely important. And one of them is the role of youth, which was also recognized in COP28, and I'm very glad that has been for the first time ever in the COP has been taken with a serious resolution. And the second one is that something that all of you have mentioned is the issue of including nature and biodiversity as we move forward in the climate change, which sometimes we focus a lot on energy and infrastructure, but less on the nature and biodiversity. And again, I think that the Asia Pacific contribution that it can make in that respect will be brilliantly welcome. So thank you very much. I just want to thank very much all of you for great presentations and for allowing me and giving me the opportunity to present. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luis, for very excellent comment and then very encouraging us. Thank you so much. Okay, so then now I would like to move round 2, but we only have another 10 minutes, so then I may ask you 2-3 minutes comments from each panelist. So we have another 2 questions. How can we involve more developing countries in the discussion of synergy? Because we need the more like-minded countries, partners. And then last question is, what kind of content can be included in the Asia Pacific version of the Synergy report? Yeah, you already give us a lot of input, but what kind of input or how we will compile, how we will edit the to make the good outcome. Okay, so the same order, I may ask Kat first for your comments. So 2-3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think in terms of how we can involve more developing countries, I think especially in the Asia Pacific region, one of the characteristics of the development that's happening is that there's the shift to cities. So the urban migration and the urban population growth is a driving factor, right? So I think we could support those countries, and they should be engaged in localization, and especially looking at low carbon cities. How can those cities be developed in such a way that they foster the transition and encourage the transition to low carbon development? And I think that's critical, because if we don't, then we will not will achieve not the trajectory that needs to change. In terms of the contents that should be included in the next Synergy report, I have a bias towards urban, but I think Luis has already indicated that there needs to be a focus on cities. Certainly in this region, all of the, and it's the case in many places, most of the SDGs intersect in cities, right? And so the value of tools like voluntary local reviews and looking at those through a climate lens and through the development of new and emerging cities in the region, I think is a significant opportunity. So I think a focus on SDG localization and low carbon cities should be included in the next Synergy report, or the local version, the Asia Pacific version of the Synergies report. Back over to you, Junichi.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah, I love your bias. Thank you so much. Okay, so next I'd like to ask Issei-san, over to you.
Thank you. Let me choose latter questions on Synergies report, Asia Pacific version. Yes. With the report, we like to help policymakers in Asia Pacific countries to take synergistic approaches. In order to do so, we believe that it should include good practices across Asia Pacific countries and guidance for policymakers. It is important to collect and publish good practices that can be easily understood and applied elsewhere. I understand that we, Asia Pacific countries, have a traditional view of living in harmony with nature, which is different from Western view. I would say this is a unique aspect. So that's why we could play leading roles in promoting synergistic approaches. Satayama initiative, as mentioned earlier, led by Japan, is one of the reflections of this view. We will further discuss the concept of the report with our partners, such as ESCAP, of course, Asia Development Bank, as well as experts in due course. Please stay tuned. Thank you. Over to Junichi.
Thank you, Issei-san. Yeah, there are many, yes, good initiatives. Thank you. Okay, so then Ariel, so are you ready?
Yes. So first, I would indeed echo Fujino-san's by sharing some of the key takeaways from the Asia Pacific Climate Week, which concluded ahead of COP28 in Johor Bahru, Malaysia. I think one of the important key takeaway is the call for regional cooperation, as this is a theme that's renunciated throughout the conference. Another key takeaway is around just transition. The just transition should go beyond the environmental considerations and also to encompass the social and economic dimensions. And then the third takeaway is on the stakeholder engagement, especially to engage the youth, women, and indigenous communities as they need to play an active role. So very quickly to reflect on the key outcomes from COP28, although a lot has already been covered by the other speakers, I would reiterate saying that the regional version of the Synergies report will consider the topics such as transition away from fossil fuels, finance, loss and damage, as well as the thematic topics covered by the global goal on adaptation, including water, food, health, ecosystems, infrastructure, poverty eradication, and cultural heritage. So I stop here and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much. It's also very good meeting in Johor Asia Pacific Climate Week, and then I'm so happy to have kind of good output from the COP28 UAE consensus, and then but the next question is that how to make it happen, and then okay, I will also ask Luis again for your final comments.
Here we are.
Oh, yeah, now it's okay. Yes,
thank you very much. And as I participated in this event, I got a lot more excited about our next report, and it's particularly on the localization. And I think, as is rightly pointed out, it's not just cities, but it's the localization of the synergies. But of course, you have a lot to contribute. The last comment that was made on the importance of engaging the stakeholders, and that again comes up again and again in order to have just transitions. So I'm glad that this is being reinforced. And of course, the part of the regional cooperation, something that I did not mention perhaps as much in my presentation, is that we have a challenge on multilateralism for many reasons that I don't want to mention here. But I think that we really, with this synergistic approach to climate and development, we have a great opportunity for promoting multilateralism, cooperation, and regional cooperation, as Ariel has just mentioned, extremely important. Thank you very much again for allowing me to be part of this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luis, for joining us. And then, it's quite the good panel, I think. And Kat, may I ask you about the APFSD? So you will have APFSD next February, and I think we need a good collaboration between like APFSD and then Asia Pacific Climate Week or any other opportunity. So Kat, please.
Am I muted? Can you hear me? Yes, so APFSD will be the 20th through 23rd of February this year. It's a bit earlier than in the past. And there will be opportunities for side events and focus on, as usual, the SCAP will release the progress report of the SDGs in the region. So there'll be an update on progress in the region. Hopefully we'll see some more. But we would encourage all interested parties, stakeholders, NGOs, academics, UN agencies to join if they can. We welcome all participation.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a kind of sudden request to cut, but thank you for kindly responding to my request. Okay, so we are almost to the end of the session, and then may I have like a final comment? So it's really necessary for having our good roadmap or our good visions for Asia Pacific synergy, and then hopefully we can develop our report from the Asia Pacific soon. And then next week, Tuesday, I just will organize ISAP. This is a pre-event. And so some of you may come to Yokohama. Pacific or Yokohama is a venue. But we also have online broadcasting. So please join us, and then let's continue discussion. Also, let's develop the actions from these kind of opportunity. So thank you so much for joining today's seminar from anywhere you are, and then I appreciate all the participants who kindly join online. Also, of course, the panelists and also Luis, thank you for joining from the beginning for the end. And then also, of course, Professor Takich and then also Bahare for sending our video message. I also would like to thank my staff who prepared this side event very the good success and then smoothly. And then we have now I found we have the next opportunity, next steps. Okay, so bye-bye now, and then thank you for joining us. So have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.